The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, January 2nd, St. Gaspar Bufalo. Gaspar, who was born in Rome and was the son of a captain, was educated at the Roman College and was ordained a priest in 1808. Shortly after the capture of Rome by Napoleon, he was exiled with most of the clergy for having refused to abjure his fidelity to the Holy See. When Napoleon fell, he returned to Rome, where he found a wide field of work, since the city had been deprived of priests and sacraments for almost 9 years. In 1814, he directed a mission in Giano, in the Diocese of Spoleto, and there he had the idea of founding the Congregation of the Precious Blood. In Giano, he found a house suitable for this purpose, and with the help of Cardinal Cristaldi, whose friendship never left him, the new congregation was cordially approved by Pope Pius VII in 1815. The Pope placed the house and the adjacent church of San Felice in Giano at the saint's disposal. The second foundation took place in 1819, and the third shortly after, in Albano. The saint wanted his congregation to have a house in every diocese, in the most abandoned and perverted district. The Kingdom of Naples was at that time a center of all crimes, where no one's life was safe. The Pope wrote in his own hand to Del Bufalo, in 1821, begging him to found 6 houses in that city. He gladly accepted, but had to overcome the greatest difficulties in obtaining sufficient funds and personnel. His biographer tells us that Providence seemed to play with the saint, for as soon as one obstacle disappeared, a new and more imposing one appeared. Little by little, however, he managed to gather sufficient men and a larger amount of money than was strictly necessary. Under Pope Leo XII, serious difficulties arose, but time made them disappear, and in 1824, the houses of the congregation were open to all young priests who wanted to receive special training for the missions. The ideal was high, and the work arduous. A missionary, the founder said, must be like a soldier or a sailor who never gives up and is prepared for any eventuality. He wanted his children to be distinguished not only by fervor, but also by science. In order to evangelize the whole world, as their vocation demanded, they had to learn languages, as well as theology and sacred scripture. Already during the founder's lifetime, the work had spread throughout Italy. Traveling incessantly through the towns, suffering infinite privations, often threatened with death, the missionaries of the Precious Blood preached everywhere the gospel message, following the example of their founder. The biographers of Gaspar del Bufalo give us a graphic description of a mission, following its successive stages. The methods of these missionaries were completely new. For example, they disciplined themselves in the public square, which invariably produced numerous conversions. On the last day, they publicly burned obscene books and images and everything that could offend God. They would leave a large cross planted in remembrance of the mission. They would sing a solemn Te Deum and continue on their way to the next town. The saint often said at the end of a mission, exhausted but full of gratitude, "If it is so delightful to toil for God, how much more will it be to rejoice in Him?" One of his principles was to make everyone work, and for this purpose he founded a multitude of charitable works in Rome for young and old, rich and poor of both sexes. Among other things, he introduced nocturnal adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, in which some men who did not dare to visit the Lord during the day could come to him, like Nicodemus, at night. Gaspar del Bufalo preached his last mission in Rome, in the new church, during the cholera of 1836. Feeling his strength weakening, he immediately returned to Albano and began to prepare himself for death. The cold made him suffer terribly during the day and thirst during the night, but he abstained from drinking in order to be able to celebrate Mass the next day. He begged his children to leave him alone as long as possible, so that he could devote himself to prayer. After the feast of St. Francis Xavier, he left to die in Rome. On December 19th, the doctor forbade him to say Mass. On December 28th, he received the last sacraments and died. The saint had worked several miracles during his lifetime, and his intercession achieved many graces after his death. The list of healings and other miracles worked by him is very long. He was canonized in 1954,